Is this working? Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here to honor Elizabeth. We're going to start out by singing a song that she specifically chose for us to sing at the beginning of this gathering. Hopefully, I can't see the words at all through the Christmas tree, but hopefully you all can see the words. She wanted us to sing what the world needs now. So even if you think you can't sing, just be brave and sing. So I am the Reverend Carol Badeau, and I'm privileged to serve here as minister at Westside. And I really want to thank you all for being here today to remember someone who was so beloved by so many people, by friends, by family, by this community, by the whole community, and by pretty much everyone she met, because she made such a difference. Elizabeth wanted us all to remember that all of us need to love everyone as much as we can with our hearts and our minds and our actions. So today we're going to remember a lot of the things that she said and did, but mostly I hope that we can abide in that spirit of love for the world. There's a lot of Kleenex out there. Please share it liberally. Pass it up and down the rows as you need to, because today we are going to have moments of deep sadness. We're going to be sad because we've lost someone who was so special and so young and so vibrant, so passionate and so caring. But I hope we'll also have moments of sweetness, remembering the amazing person that Elizabeth was and all the ways she touched us. And I think Elizabeth would also want us to have some moments of recommitment to each other, to the values she held so deeply and lived every day of her life. A commitment to the world, to a just world, and to life itself. As we reflect on her life today, let's reflect on her legacy. The things she taught us about bravery and humor, about doing instead of just saying, about connecting people. Let's reflect on the things she would want us to carry forward in the world. Things she started that we can continue. We know that one of her greatest passions was for justice. So her good friend and colleague, Rebecca, is going to come up and say a few words and share a poem that touches on this subject. So I want to invite Rebecca to come up.
My name is Rebecca Summers, and I had the great privilege of sharing a classroom with Elizabeth at Lenore City High School. We shared the ESL classroom for many years, and she taught me and many other educators, many in this room today, about high expectations for all students, about working hard, and about the equity that all children deserve. She dedicated herself to helping a community of students and families working so hard to make a good life for themselves. I remember countless mornings when she would come in the classroom and she would say, "Rebecca, I was up at 3 and I just couldn't go back to sleep, and I'm so worried about Wilbur, and I wish we could do more about Juan Carlos, and my heart hurts for Alejandra." And you can insert the name of every student that Elizabeth interacted with, and she cared so much more, and she always wanted to do more, and she was never satisfied with just enough, not from herself and not from her colleagues. I'm very fortunate that Elizabeth was not only a very dear colleague, but she also was a very, very dear friend. And one of my favorite stories is we went to Atlanta together for an education conference, and we're downtown and we're checking in, and I'm looking around and I'm like, "Elizabeth, there's a lot of Cleveland Cavaliers fans down here. You know, I'm a Cleveland Cavaliers fan." And it's, and I look it up, I'm like, "Elizabeth, they're playing across the street. It's on my bucket list to see them play." She goes, "Well, where's the ticket box? Let's go." And if you know Elizabeth, she could not care less. She could not care less about NBA sports, about any of that. And we went in, we sat there, and she supported me, you know, checking this item off my bucket list. She sat there working on her lesson plans, answering her emails, thinking about ways she could improve the community and at Lenore City High School. And I'll just never forget what a supportive friend and colleague that she was. And so, in honor of her work and her belief in the right of all humans to a safe and stable life, she asked me to read this poem today. The poem Where No One is Deported by Jose Olivares. Now, I like to imagine La Migra running into the sock factory where my mom and her friends worked. It was all women who worked there, women who braided each other's hair during breaks, women who wore rosaries and never had a hair out of place, women who were ready for cameras or for God, who ended all their sentences with "Si Dios quiere," as in the day before the immigration raid, when the rumor of a raid was passed around like bread and the women made plans, "Si Dios quiere." So when the immigration officers arrived, they found boxes of socks and all the women absent, safe at home. Those officers thought no one was working. They were wrong. The women would say it was God working. And it was God. But the God my mom taught us to fear was vengeful. He might have wet his thumb and wiped La Migra out of this world like a smudge on a mirror. This God was the God that woke me up at 7 a.m. every day for school to let me know there was food in the fridge for me and my brothers. I never asked my mom where the food came from, but she told me anyway. Gracias a Dios. Gracias a Dios del chisme, who heard all La Migra's plans and whispered them into the right ears to keep our families safe.
To keep our families safe. It seems like that was at the center of everything she cared about. Keeping people safe, keeping them connected, keeping them whole. She did incredible work in the world, but she also did incredible work one-to-one with each person who loved her. I'm going to ask Dave to come up and talk a little bit about his wife, Elizabeth.
So, I've kind of told a few people here that I'm probably the only person in the room that knows everyone. But I don't know everyone because my wife knew so many people I didn't get to meet more than once, if at all. So anyway, welcome everyone. And for those who may not know me, I'm Dave Goforth, Elizabeth's spouse for the past 23 years, having met each other in this very building about 25 years ago. And thank you all for being here today. Elizabeth would be very pleased and maybe a little amazed to see so many people gathered to celebrate her life. Elizabeth maintained a wide circle of friends that stretched all the way back to childhood. And her Connecticut high school friend, Vicki, who's here today, may have said it best when she told me recently in a text, Elizabeth collected good friends the way someone collects flowers for a bouquet. And I hope you wrote that, Vicki. Anyway, I never thought of my wife as someone who would burst into the room and instantly work it. But she had a quiet efficiency about her. She built lasting friendships through work, teaching, church, and the running community, the triathlon community, running, biking, swimming community she knew so well. High school, college, you name it, she was always involved in that running, triathlon, swimming community. And her real superpower wasn't just making friends, but it was staying in touch. Birthdays, notes, emails, check-ins. She shared vacations with folks. She didn't let friends drift away. Like say high school friends, college friends, her Vassar folks that advisors, she was still friends with them. I mean, how many of us went to college and could have called up your advisor and they would say, like, who are you? So anyway, she still does that, or did it. So if you've been watching the slideshow, if you've had time to look at it before, I think we turned it off here, but you probably noticed a theme. Yes, we were a very good-looking couple, so. But seriously, what probably stands out is the abundance of run, swim, and bike photos. And we have like the hall decorated back here with stuff that she kind of wanted out. And so we have that, and you can kind of look over a lot of her medals. I'd say I would be probably a billionaire by now if we hadn't spent all that money on those races. But anyway, and it wasn't accidental that all those photos and stuff are up there about run, bike, and swim. That was truly her thing. Elizabeth would say, like pretty frequently when I would tell her hey, maybe you don't need to run today, or maybe take a break, and she would say, it's what I do. So it's what she did, and she had I don't know if you ever noticed it, she had a run, swim, bike tattoo on her right arm. Or was it the left? But anyway. And it's what I do, she would say, and she was good at it. She frequently placed in the top 3 in her age group and occasionally finished top 1, woman overall, maybe in the master's division. And she liked that. And I like going with her too and dealing with that. Then the years of chemotherapy reduced her speed and endurance, but never her desire. During chemo sessions, she was often the youngest person in the room. And if you're not familiar with chemo, we never were until the last 4 years or 5 years. But drugs are typically given at an infusion center, and there's multiple people sitting around, and they just get drugs dripped into their vein or their port if they have one. And it's not painful, at least at the time. And you just sit there and the drugs drip in. Those visits can last anywhere from 1 to 6 hours, maybe more, I don't know. But she wasn't just the youngest person there, generally. She was often the only one planning to go run that day or the next day or go to the gym and work out. And the other folks in the chemo area would be like, what? And partly it was because most IV chemo session also includes a steroid. So you're kind of pumped up, even though you may pump down in a few days. So yeah, she ran her last race with me in April of this year, and we ran a 5K together in Farragut. And she did pretty darn well for her condition at that time. She didn't finish in the top 3, but she didn't finish in the bottom 3 either, so that was good. So for over 4 years, chemotherapy kept the cancer at bay. I think we tried at least 8 different rounds of different drugs, and they all worked to a certain extent. And the last one seems to be working this past 6 months in the early part of the year, seemed to be working really well, and all of our statistics showed really well until it didn't. It's darn mutations, darn cancer, you just can't defeat it. So when there's no longer any effective drugs, our doctors suggested hospice. That was in May of this year. And we didn't know how long we might have left. Nobody could tell you that. At the time, Elizabeth was still relatively healthy, and she stayed that way through much of the summer. In fact, probably not everyone came, but she threw herself with all of her friends and family to help 60th birthday party here. And her 60th birthday isn't until next April, so we had it early. And it was really, friends and family came from all over the country. It was big, it was joyful, and it was a huge success. I would kind of recommend that to anybody, because everybody would like to see Elizabeth. When we had the party, it was available. So. And I'm especially thankful that she was still healthy enough for 3 weddings in August. And amazingly, 3 weddings in 1 month. I mean, we haven't done that, 3 weddings in our whole life. So 2 were out of town, and one very important one in town was our quote, granddaughter. Chelsea and Yasiel got married, and we've known Chelsea was a baby of our Elizabeth student, and we've kind of adopted that family, or they've adopted us. And Chelsea's going to come up and speak a little bit. And so by September, Elizabeth's health began a steady decline. Even as she lost weight and strength, her years as an athlete paid off. In her final days, she was still able to get up and move around on her own. Actually, to my detriment, because it would be like, I was always worried about her falling, you know. And she would get up, go places. And a quiet strength that stayed with her to the end. As I tended to her needs at home, she would often say to me, David, I'm so sorry to put you through this. I'd wipe away the tears and remind her that it was nothing she did to deserve this sickness, and we were here in this together. Or she might say, it's what I do. So if you notice the lack of flowers today, other than a late arrival here, That was per Elizabeth's request. She loved flowers, and she loved, especially in the spring in our house, she delighted in picking the daffodils. And but instead of money for flowers, she established a foundation to benefit future students at Lenore City High School. If you'd like to honor her memory, donations to the foundation are best way to do so. You'll find some flyers in the lobby. And a side note, I don't need flowers, and I don't need casseroles, but thank you anyway. So you'll also see we had some running Remembering Elizabeth badges in the lobby, and if you'd like to take one of those, and there's some magnets there if you want to put them on your fridge. And we had a race here recently. We had about 20 people show up for the Turkey Day race, and we all wore our badges. And again, thank you for being here. Thanks for loving Elizabeth and celebrating her life that was full, determined, and very well lived. I know that many of you may want to share a few words or offer condolences to me personally. Maybe not, I don't know. But I truly appreciate that. With so many people here, and we kind of want to close down by 5:30. I may not be able to spend time with everyone today. Please know that that means more than I can say. But I'll be keeping Elizabeth's phone and email active for at least 6 more months. And if you don't have mine, you can call hers and leave a message, reaching out, and I'll find it and answer it. And knowing of Elizabeth, she'd probably prefer we eventually work something out, like a trail run or a bike ride together. And maybe a mimosa afterwards, because she liked to have a mimosa. And we have some of those here today, too. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
So I want to invite you all to take a deep breath and think of one joyful memory of Elizabeth. Just one. Think of 1 minute you had with her where she made you laugh or inspired you or encouraged you. We're going to get to watch a lot of video. Dave and other people have provided a lot of pictures. So you've seen some of them up here. Later when we're having food, you can watch that video of pictures. But take just a minute. I think of her always doing something athletic. Even if she was visiting me, she had just come from doing something athletic or was on her way to do something athletic next. And after that, she was on her way to do some kind of justice activity. But she made connections all over the place. All over the place. And through the wonders of technology today, we are going to be able to hear her friend Philippa share her reflection, her memory with us in a reading. So I'm going to ask our tech people you should be able to see this video up here.
I'm sorry I cannot be with you in person today. I'll read a paragraph by Dorothy Day, but first want to say a few words about my dear Elizabeth. I am so grateful for our friendship, which began in college and has been sustained. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I cannot be with you in person today. I'll read a paragraph by Dorothy Day, but first want to say a few words about my dear Elizabeth. I am so grateful for our friendship, which began in college and has been sustained and deepened over the past 35 years. Even though we lived on opposite sides of the country, our friendship was active and nurturing through the years. I think of her often, and especially when I run and when I ride my bike. She will be in my heart always. Here's the reading by Dorothy Day. People say, "What is the sense of our small effort?" They cannot see that we must lay one brick at a time, take one step at a time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds is like that. No one has the right to sit down and feel helpless. There's too much work to do.
something that we're going to hear today. She wanted to make sure that the ripples she cast into the pond made a difference, right? Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds has that capacity. So she was an activist for sure. But she was an activist with a poet's heart. Just as much as she was willing to face the ugliness of the world directly, and she did that with courage and intensity that I don't think many of us can match. Just as she did that, she also saw the beauty in things. Her poem, Averkeanda, was published in Breathing the Same Air, an East Tennessee anthology by the Knoxville Writers Guild in 2001. Here she kind of taught us poetry. She had a group of poets here that she hung out with and wrote poetry. But she loved to write poetry. And that poem reflects her deep love for and tireless commitment to the Latino community. Her commitment to the ESL community, to the students, to the local Latino community, and to that larger connection in the world was central to who she was. So today, her daughter and granddaughter, that makes me cry because she loved you guys so much. Nate and Chelsea are going to read Elizabeth's poem in Spanish, and then her friend Kathy is going to read it in English. So, are you guys ready? You're going to help us. Make sure you say your name.
I'm going to try to do this without crying, so bear with me. My name is Nate Pineda. I met La Abuela Liz a little bit about 20 years ago, about Chelsea's age. She was my ESL teacher during that period of my life. I didn't know I was able to complete my senior year. I had become pregnant, and I moved here about 7 months before I went back to school. My English was not near as good to pass the ACTs, but you know, Abuela, she would say, "That's not a chance." So she pushed me through. Miss Corbett, as we knew her, never would allow to think that I couldn't do it. Through encouragement and good, amazing practices of teaching that amaze me until this day, she helped me pass ACTs, and I graduated in 2006. But that's not all. When she learned about Chelsea, she became grandmother, not only to her, but to Adriana and Valerie that came later in my life. She was such a strong support to me during the highest and lowest part of my life. Sometimes I didn't think I deserved to be alive. And she pushed me through that, and she said, "You're good. Just keep doing one day at a time." She was proud of me, even though I didn't feel like I was making her proud. During toughest places in my life, during depression, she would just show up, and she will take the kids with her. She will go with me to places, even immigration appointments, for a long battle to try to get a status. Oh, what a victory that was when I was able to do that. She made it a point to be present for the kids' birthdays and even for Chelsea's wedding. What a victory that was again. We knew we had short time. I admire her so much. She was so strong, so brave, and she did so much for so many people. So that is why it's so painful not to have her anymore. I told her one day I was so mad at that stupid disease because she would say things like, I'm sorry I'm doing this to you. And I was like, it's not you, it's that disease. And due to that, she won't be here to celebrate Valer's next birthday, Adrian's graduation or future wedding, and that hurts. It's hard to think about that. I know that for a lot of her life, Abuela and I believed differently about afterlife, but she knew that I believed strongly about Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Was indeed a real person that walked on this earth, and he did talk about heaven. And because I truly believe there is a heaven, therefore, it is my most strong belief that right now she's walking in a nice beach somewhere in heaven with her mom, Ruth Ellen. The reason I believe that is because to get there is as simple as saying, Jesus, your Lord. One day, I hope to see her again, hug each other, and walk on that sand on that beautiful beach on a beautiful day. And I know that I want to think I'm special, but all of you are special to her. She made us feel that way. La verdad es que la abuela nos ayudó a cambiar nuestras vidas. Y ella escribió un poema y me pidió que lo leyera en español, porque no solamente me impactó a mí y mi familia, sino que sé que muchas familias que ahora no están presentes acá, en verdad recibieron amor verdadero de ella. Tenía tanto amor para dar. Y lo hizo tan bien. Este poema lo escribió ella. A ver qué onda con la 18 calle. Me siento en el autobús, esperando la salida para Antigua. Y con el sol del atardecer, la vista que tengo, digna de una reina, este país es mi corona, es una joya brillante. Un gran río de olores y colores. Y mira, allá se agachan las mujeres vendedoras con caras aburridas sobre sus canastas de frutas, sus panes y peines, las espaldas pegadas a las paredes y tan con sus vidas tienen hoyos profundos. Secretos oscuros esconden sus quetzalitos en cambios detrás de sus arrugas de hupiles y lodo. El olor de no baño mezcla con sus trajes de sudor, de humo de leña y de sus hijos y de la vida. ¿Qué estarán pensando cuando me miran? ¿Qué será esa gringa? Yo de veras, la reina del dinero y de las opciones, del poder, de escoger mi vida. Yo no tengo que sentarme a la 18 calle, dando la bienvenida, gritando a cada gringa que pasa con su pisto. No me rodea el olor de la orina y el escape de los carros. No tengo que sostener a mis hijos con frijoles, tortillas y coca. Pero una tarde me gustaría sentarme en el bus a Antigua y sentarme allí con ellas, mi espalda pegada a la pared, una nena en mi pecho, la reina de mi mundo, viendo qué onda en la 18 calle.
When I was preparing what to say tonight, I was really stuck. As you all know, she's an amazing woman with multiple accomplishments. And before she passed, she left me this wonderful letter. I've read it over a dozen times. And in there, she wrote I was her favorite boy, which was one of my biggest accomplishments. So happy to finally brag that I was the favorite out of the three. But also she wrote that she loved me and that I should feel that with me every day. And I do. I feel her when I'm going to school, or I'm driving home in her car, or when I'm running, because she pushed me at every 5K I ran for cross country, or if I was playing soccer, she was there cheering me on from the stands. Screaming my name, I could always hear her, and I still hear her to this day. Every time I run, I think about her, and I push at the end like she always tells me, telling me to finish strong. And I believe she's telling us all to finish strong. She loved us so dearly. She lives within us, and she has many characteristics that brought us all here today. Either if it was her funny side or her loving characteristics that were so amazing. And I thank her so much for building part of the man who I am today.
I'm Chelsea. And I want to say thank you to everybody for coming and coming to celebrate. I know there's a lot of tears, but it's still a celebration of the beautiful life that my abuela Elizabeth lived. I have many stories and I have many memories, and if I was to tell you guys all of them, I would never finish. We would be here literally all day. But the most important story and memory in my life is the day that she came into my life, and she came into my mom's life. And like Mom said, that was exactly 20 years ago. My grandmother didn't only be a blessing to our life, but she was a blessing to many others and many other families. She had good families and bad families, but regardless, she loved them all. And as my mom had stated, we do have different beliefs, but I like to know where our names come from. Every person that's given a name, your name has a meaning, it has an origin. And when I was thinking about my grandmother's name, her name is God's promise, which to me, she was exactly that, a promise. She fulfilled things that I can't even imagine, and she has been a promise to so many of you guys too. And I am just so grateful that she was our promise. As I think about Irving's talking about finishing strong, I want everybody to know that while we were with her, she finished strong and she finished peacefully, and that she is in a better spot. She is no longer suffering, and she is probably running, swimming, biking. She's doing something. But I just want to thank all of you guys for coming, for loving on our family, for supporting us. I want you guys to be like her. Take this time to say, what difference can I make in this world? What can I do differently? I know she would want us to push harder and do more. So thank you guys so much. God bless.
Hello, my name is Kathy. I'm a friend of Elizabeth, and I'm here to read her poem in English translation. I think she originally actually wrote it in Spanish, but this is her own translation. But first, I just want to tell you a little bit about how I know her and how I know her. I shared a house with Elizabeth in Guatemala in the early 1990s. We were both just out of college. We were both working there as teachers. And we actually weren't working at the same school together, but a mutual friend knew that both Elizabeth and I were looking for someone to run with. and he set us up on a blind running date. That was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Elizabeth got me out to run nearly every afternoon, even when we were tired after a long day. She was always stronger and faster than me, but she urged me on, and I tried my best to keep up because she seemed to know what she was doing. Elizabeth could always get people on board and get things done. On weekends and school vacations, we would often go on trips together, by bus usually, sometimes in a group with other friends, and sometimes just the two of us. Elizabeth was a fearless and intrepid traveler. She was always the one who had the ideas about where to go. She led the way. It was high adventure. And also often we had misadventures. I was just telling David and Elizabeth's friend Maureen and David's sister Mary last night about how one evening we were on vacation. We were in Tela, port town in Honduras, and we unintentionally became the center of a spectacle in the town's movie theater. And then there was the time we ran out of money in Belize. Elizabeth she was also, I think all of us know, she was a fearless and intrepid runner. The year that she and I lived in Antigua is it's a beautiful old city, about an hour outside of Guatemala's larger capital city, which was where we were working. We used to get home after our commute from work, put on our running gear, and she would lead me on a dirt trail up the mountain just north of town. And I mentioned this there, to some friends when they asked, what are you doing in the afternoon? Where are you going? Some local friends. And the locals told me, well, they looked alarmed, and they said, you can't go up there. There are criminals who lurk up there. Something could happen. But the only people that Elizabeth and I ever encountered on that mountain were women and children gathering firewood. Elizabeth would see them from the trail, and she would call out cheerfully, "Buenas tardes," hello. She was unruffled by things. She had that extraordinarily powerful moral compass, and she always seemed to know what to do. During our years in Guatemala, there were a lot of children there living on the streets, and in certain neighborhoods, they would approach us, especially Elizabeth with her blonde hair, and ask for money. But we knew some of them would buy glue to sniff, which would quell their hunger. Elizabeth would tell them, no money. Come with me and I'll buy you some food. And then she would. Last spring, when she told me that there were no more treatments to be had, she asked me if I would read the English version of this poem at her memorial service, and that she told me that Nate and Chelsea would read the Spanish, and that Adrian, of course, would be here, and it's just a great honor for me to read it. Let's see what's happening on 18th Street by Elizabeth Corbett. I sit on the bus, waiting to leave for Antigua. And with the setting sun, the view before me belongs to a queen. This country is my crown, a brilliant jewel. It's a grand river of colors and smells. Oh, and look, over there crouch the women selling goods, their faces bored above their baskets of fruits, bread, plastic combs. Their backs are tight to the wall, and just like there are deep holes and dark secrets in their lives, they hide their quetzalitos, their small change, in the muddy folds of their huipiles. The odor of not having bathed mixes with their dress, their sweat, the linger of a cook fire, the smell of their children, their lives. What do they think when they see me? Who is that gringa? I am truly a queen, the queen of money and options. I have the power to choose my life. I don't have to sit on 18th Street shouting welcome to every gringa who passes with her pocket full of money. The smell of urine and car exhaust doesn't surround me. I don't have to feed my children only beans, tortillas, and a Coke. But one afternoon, I'd like to not sit on the bus to Antigua and sit down there with the women, my back up against the wall, my daughter at my breast, the queen of my world, watching what's happening on 18th Street.
There are probably more stories than we can possibly tell all in one day. We're going to have some reflections now from some other people in Elizabeth's life, family and friends. So, Bruce, who wants to come up next? We've got space for, or David, are you next? You're next. Come on up. Come on up.
Thank you. Path crossed with my sisters 20 some odd years ago here. Yes. And speaking of David, he wrote a beautiful obituary. Elizabeth was born in Hartford, Connecticut, to Bruce and Ruth Ellen Corbett. She grew up in a close-knit family in a rustic two-story home on a few acres in Avon, Connecticut. The home included a red barn that often housed a cow and a coop full of chickens. I thought it might be helpful just to explain a little bit about what rustic might be. So we had one bathroom. It wasn't real conducive to privacy or much time in getting ready for school. So, picture Elizabeth as a 8th grader, 7th grader, freshman. Just a couple minutes, you got to get in, out, get to school. Rustic also meant if you tried to use the hairdryer and the toaster at the same time, it was likely to pop a fuse, and then you wouldn't have you were out of luck with the hairdryer. We experimented at one point with having chickens and then our own Purdue slaughterhouse type thing. I do not think Elizabeth enjoyed that at all. We had a cow, I don't think she eats hamburger, or she didn't eat hamburger, right? Close-knit also was a problem at times for my sister. She had 2 younger brothers who were much less mature. much less mature often, and it was a problem. I'd say I was maybe, 7, 8, 9 years old. Maybe Liz is early high school. Bruce and I with a junior bow and arrow set. We grab a couple arrows and we start sword fighting upstairs in the house right near Elizabeth's bedroom door. Full sword fight, swashbuckling, all that, right? An arrow goes right through her door. Now I would say to Dad, hey, the quality of the door needs to be improved. But at that point, I didn't quite think of that. Dad was not happy with us. And I can still picture Elizabeth's face complaining to Dad, why am I stuck here with these two? Close-knit was way too close at times. Rustic was too rustic at times. I don't think the rustic or the close-knit had anything to do with this, but when Liz graduated from high school, she went to Vassar. And then right after that, she went to Guatemala. And we didn't see her too often. She'd come home, we'd visit, and I can honestly say a few times, once or twice a year, we'd see Elizabeth. And, looking back, I think we missed out on a lot. She had a view, a desire to see a lot. And maybe, home was just not broad enough for her. So she moved on. And we kept in touch, but not as often as I, looking back now, would have liked it to have been. I'd say, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, Liz was visiting, and we were sitting around our, kitchen table just talking, and I think Bruce, Dad, Mom, just having Liz fill us in, catch up. And it just seemed like she was down about things, complaining like school wasn't good. Just she was frustrated with school. Something, just not real happy. And I asked her, what makes you happy? Like, tell us something that you've really enjoyed doing. Her face brightened up, and she said, triathlon. I enjoy triathlon, and it's obviously a theme that is consistent here. But she said, Dave, you should try it. I hemmed and hawed for a little bit, but I did try it. And I'm glad I did. It was a bond that we developed over the years. We did a triathlon in 2015. And I didn't know this, but my sister could trash talk. I mean, hey, Dave, I'm pretty good in the water. I'm going to leave you in my wake. And she did. But that was something that we really, really enjoyed. And it was a connection that I will miss. Will miss. Back in October this year, we were visiting, and we were talking about the service and some other things. And I said, Elizabeth, sitting around here talking about things, it brought me back to a TV show called The Vikings. And they would, the Viking tradition, the warriors, they would, as a funeral service or a ritual for warriors, they would take a boat, put the treasures of the family, the swords, the helmets, the shields, put the body into the boat and set it afire, push it out to sea, and send send the person to Valhalla, right? And I was saying that to Elizabeth and said, I think you're a warrior. I think there's a Valhalla for you as well, and it's a recurring opportunity. So at Valhalla, I think the tradition is you battle, you feast, and then you wake up again and do it the next day, right? So I had a vision of, well, you swim, you bike, and you run, and you wake up refreshed, and you do it all again the next day. No hip pain, no fatigue from medication, just wake up refreshed and you do what you do. And we were talking about that for a few minutes, and she said, I like that. I like that, Dave. So until we meet again, happy racing.
Hello, I'm Bruce. I'm Dave's older brother and Elizabeth's younger brother. I have my little talk, my notes on the back of an office referral. Liz would be so proud of me. In fact, one of the things we talked about maybe 5 or 10 years ago, how How many people have jammed up the copier at school? There's a couple that weren't in there. Us chopping a reindeer the very first winter at 171 Huckleberry Hill Road, behind the barn for a bunch of weeds that grew up that got iced over, and we would go back and take broomsticks. I believe, Dave, it was a broomstick that went through the door and not an arrow, but that's okay. We were chopping the weeds with, what little 5-year-olds and a 7-year-old would do. When the telephone lines came down in the front yard, and Elizabeth goes, "Bruce, run." So I did. How proud Elizabeth was of me my freshman year of high school, when we both were running cross country, and she would point at me to all her friends. "That's my brother." Dave, sorry, but also a big memory of mine was Elizabeth's first date when she was in 7th grade. I don't think she let on to her parents that she had a date. They were going to the movies, and one of the Gilrain boys came out and walked to the door to meet her at the door, and my mom almost went through the ceiling. Of course, my father was pretty calm, and her 2 younger brothers were gawking, and we were probably 5th grade. So there was a poster on the door that never came down. Hey, Liz, how come that poster is up on your door? Because of the hole. But yeah, there's lots of memories of Elizabeth with my daughter in Maine, with my daughter at the beach. I have a picture on my desk at school with Elizabeth and my son when he was about 2 years old. She was my older sister. But what I wanted to talk about today was how proud I am of her and the things that she's done. It was 5 years ago in the spring when Elizabeth had that phone call with us, and I have stage 4 cancer. And she's done more in 5 years with cancer than a lot of people do who are healthy. The Army, which she's not a big fan of, probably, but we do more before 6 o'clock than most people do all day. Well, she did more in the last 5 years than I certainly have done in the last 5 years. She was running triathlons, as Dave said, as recently as April. She was still going for bike rides in the summer when I was talking to her. 2 weeks before she died, she called me and she was stretching. I said, "Elizabeth, what are you doing?" "Well, I'm doing my stretching." She stretched and did yoga every morning. She planned her foundation. She planned this service. She was doing stuff, because that's what she did. Elizabeth, my dearest sister, I will miss you. And when I play my games, I play Wordle. I sometimes get ridiculed by my brother. Wordle and Quirtle and Dordle and Worldle. But we used to share them each day, and she would sometimes call me and tell me, "Hey, this word was a great word." So I play them in honor of you, dear sister.
Bruce, do you want to say anything? You're welcome to.
Would you like to sit over here?
I get to look at your backs. It's so I can move over, but I've been just sitting.
Yeah, let me move you over.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. See, now is that Elizabeth's dad or what? I don't want to be in front of her picture.
Move the picture.
We'll move the picture. All right, there you go. You're all set.
I had trouble writing what, a speech? A remembrance, a celebration of life. And in writing this celebration of life, it is very important for me to represent, or to have David represent me, doing all the things that a father would do for his daughter, to the doctor, to all kinds of care, and I thank you very much for that, David. Elizabeth graduated from Vassar College, but before she did, she had 2 younger brothers, and she was able to care for them and survive them and be very supportive. And I have very fond memories and pictures of Elizabeth sort of putting her arm around a younger brother, propping up a head, and making sure that they were safe where they were. So this is good. And after graduating from college with Latin American Studies, I believe it was, she thought a little bit, and she said, "You know, it's cold in Connecticut." And I think she had a little touch of South America and Latin American culture from her education. I think after a year or 2, and this was in January, her mother and I went to the airport with her, and she took a small plane to, I don't know, maybe New York to make a connection. But there she was out on the runway, and they didn't have the tarm, what would you say, the walking thing. So she walked from the building out to a small plane, and there we were in the window of the airport, waving to our daughter as she went away. And we were thankful that she was there, and she found a good thing to do for her to support her Latin American studies. And when she came home, she wanted to get involved in creating a good environment for Latin American people. She did some teaching, Latin American studies, which was wonderful. And in the process, she decided to help Nate. There you are. And in that process, Nate became, I think, a grandchild for me in that way. And also Chelsea and Valerie, part of the group of children or grandchildren that I have. And I'm so thankful for that living generation that she's taking care of. She had a lot of high school friends too, and I'm glad that they are here, so blessed for their memories. And I have some beautiful cards that they have written, and I do appreciate that so much. Toward the end, I went down to see Elizabeth at her home with David, and I was expecting to be there for the final days, but Elizabeth kept moving around and doing things. And as a result, I was in turmoil, and Dave knew I was in turmoil because I saw him several times early in the morning. Geez, Dave, I don't know. I think I need to go home. Oh, gee, Dave, I'm not sure what I said, and maybe I'll stay. Well, anyway, my son was visiting at the same time. He said, Dad, I'll take you home. And that was all right with me. And Liz said to me, Dad, you go home and come back in a few weeks. Well, those few weeks were a few weeks, but Elizabeth's condition deteriorated very quickly, and I could not make it back. In the process of not making it back, there was a terrible guilt feeling I had because I said I was going to be. And when I couldn't be there, I had support from my sons and family, and that was good. One morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning, the moon was shining through a skylight in my bedroom, and I got up, got on my knees and prayed. And I was with Elizabeth. I feel that. And I'm so thankful for that. And I'm thankful for all of you for being here to share your memories of her and celebrate her life. Elizabeth was a very good communicator, as many of you know. Letters and cards. That arrived quite often, and as a result, I've gathered a few cards together. Excuse me, get that out of here.
Do you want that one?
I don't know.
Give me that one.
As you can tell, I'm a little discombobulated, and as you get older, you get that way. Of course, I may have been that way a little earlier. My son, Bruce, bought a card. I think he was going to give it to me. It said, Dad, when they made you, they broke the mold, and you fixed it. And my two sons made their comment, but Elizabeth made her comment too. Dad, put a little duct tape on it and it'll be okay. Ruth Ellen, my wife, had a wonderful relationship with her daughter. And we have a card that Elizabeth wrote to Ruth Ellen, my wife, and me. She said, "We are so happy," that's you, Dave, "that you're here to share this day with us, and we thank you for all your help and generosity as you come upon your 40th anniversary." That was for us. "I thank you for your role modeling and great parenting, and I'm only hoping to have 50 years with Dave. It didn't come to pass, but there were almost 40 good years, and thank you." My last card, and this was probably a couple months before she passed. "Dad, I think you and Mom did a great job with this, allowing me to make my own way. Thanks so much." What is this? And I'm going to save the best to last, almost. "The finest inheritance you can give a child is to allow it to make its own way completely on its own. And there's a picture of a young child here on a very rough beach, making its way to the water, which could be a danger. And she was very appreciative of the fact that I let her make her own way. And she certainly did a very good job in making her own way. And the final paragraph on this last card, and this is probably the last thing she wrote to me, and I appreciate the donation to the foundation. Another way you support me. Lovely Dad. I think I have something else to say, but I can't think of what it is. But that's good. Thank you. You said it all, Dad. Dave has always come to help me out. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for being here.
Karen, where are you? There you are. There you are.
Hi, I'm Karen Holst, and Elizabeth and I met teaching at Farragut Middle, and this was hard. And the way that I did it was I wrote a letter to Elizabeth. So this is a conversation between Elizabeth and me to share with all of you. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the icebreaker game you created for your 60th, designed to get a room full of strangers acquainted as we matched your meaningful memories with the appropriate person. The cherished memory you shared about me, printed on the pink paper, was of the early morning when you were together with Dave that I busted into your classroom, failing to see the student reclined on your couch, and bellowed, "Hey, Corbett, did you get any last night?" A memory that stood apart from the others listed, like ran my first triathlon with, mentored me at Vassar, met while working with Habitat, and so on, brought an added dimension to meeting the packed room of people celebrating you. Thank you, Elizabeth, for having no whisper voice that I ever heard. That registered just slightly under or over a bit louder than normal speaking voice. So that when we sat in faculty meetings, always toward the front, and you, suffering no fools, when not in a not infrequent moment, demanded, would whisper for the front rows to hear in my ear something like, "He's an idiot." Launching me into I'm not with her mode. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the job you gave me. The weekend we spent at the Pax Place in Brevard, on a trail in DuPont Park, me trying desperately to keep up with you as we ran uphill, the uphill portion on that little morning run. When finally reaching the top, you made me promise that at your funeral, I would make certain no one called you an inspiration. So I'm not calling you an inspiration. I'm calling you my first friend I ever made in Knoxville, and what a friend. A person that can get a room filled largely with strangers from literally across the country to unite, laugh, and connect in an instant over the one thing they all shared, their love and admiration for Elizabeth Corbett. You built community everywhere, working tirelessly for your church, your students, countless organizations and individuals in support of bettering lives and the decent treatment of our fellow humans. I am calling you someone who persevered through impossible obstacles with your sharply intelligent and wry humor intact because you care so deeply and actually believe that justice for all means for all. I am calling you someone who had no whisper voice, thank God, and never more so than when it came to your excellence as an educator. One of the best teachers I've known, someone who taught me so much and believed unrelentingly in the potential of her students, worked tirelessly on their behalf, and with the expectation that her fellow educators do the same. Teaching is an art, and I am calling you an artist who knows that it begins with building relationships. That student on the couch so many years ago was at the 60th birthday party, along with her parents. And sitting here today is a family that became your family, a bond that began when you wanted to meet a former student's daughter and be involved in her life. I am calling you someone who would not let me or others off the hook. That morning at DuPont Park, or the race we ran at Bearden Beer Market ascending the steepest hill in Sequoia Hills, or that other trail run in the state park I didn't want to do. You saying to me, we're going to make it to that mailbox, just to that tree, only a little bit further, and then we can walk a few steps. Me lagging, you encouraging, always the entire way. I am calling you a word there is no word for the day you felt bad and could not leave the house, but desperately wanted to see, and the only way to get your new prescription filled was to walk into Vision Works at Westtown Mall and be measured. With effort, you dressed, made the car ride, and we walked in the store and were greeted by a lovely young woman who said, "Miss Corbett." She was a former student at Lenoir City High. Though you did not teach her, you helped her and her family get their first ever home through Habitat. Her appreciation and regard for you so beautifully evident as she proudly shared her post-high school education and fulfilling career path. I call you that person, my dear friend, that does all of that. I love you.
Susan, where's Susan? There you are. Come on up, Susan.
Hi, everybody. My name is Susan, and I've had the privilege of calling Liz my dear friend for over 30 years. We met in 1995 when Uncle Alan introduced us, said he had a niece moving into town. He said, "She's about your age, Susan. She's a runner. She's divorced. She's looking for a roommate. I think you all might get along." And boy, did we get along. Liz, Sophie, and I lived together for 2 years here in Knoxville while I went back to graduate school at UT, and Liz was teaching at Webb. Liz coached the track team. We did a lot of running together. Sophie ate a few of my running shorts, and we became fast friends. Uncle Alan convinced me to become the social director at the Knoxville Track Club, and Liz joined the KTC board of directors. Uncle Alan can be very convincing. I love Liz like a sister. I remember her coming home from church one day telling me about this guy she met named Dave. She was quite taken with him, and they started riding bikes together. She started doing a lot more activities at church. And I'm pretty sure that Dave had a lot to do with that. I saw their romance blossom from the very beginning. I'm grateful to have been at Liz and Dave's wedding, and they were both at my wedding to my husband, Steve, who is here with me today. I'm also grateful that Dave's mother happened to live 30 minutes south of me when I moved to Florida right after graduate school to start my career. Dave, Liz, Uncle Alan, and Aunt Frony would come to Florida every January and stay the entire month. So I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with them. And Liz loved the sunshine and she loved the beaches. They brought their bicycles with them, and we always met up for a dinner, some sightseeing, some brewery visits, and a few 5Ks. So that's a 30-year friendship. Liz introduced me to a lot of new things that a small-town Knoxville, Tennessee girl doesn't see often. Guatemalan culture, food, art, how to give back, how to volunteer, how to make a difference, how to advocate, how to write a proper sentence. She graded a lot of papers in our living room with a big red pen. Liz introduced, I've already said that. I will never forget when Liz asked me to attend the 1996 Atlanta Olympics to go watch the marathon together. We stayed at John Makar's house. Is John here? He was here at the 60th. We've already had this story. We stayed at John Makar's house, and we volunteered at his tea room and youth hostel. That opened up my eyes. I met a lot of people from around the world, and Liz did a lot of advocating for them. We also ran a House Harrier run in a costume I borrowed from John that I will never forget. Liz introduced me to a lot of things I would not have discovered on my own. I loved her like a sister. How does someone so healthy, so active, and so kind get cancer? She ran Ironman. She was vegetarian. She was the strongest, healthiest, coolest chick I knew. When she called me over the summer to tell me she was under hospice care, I was speechless. I had read every one of her posts online about her cancer journey. Liz was an amazing writer. Liz was an amazing fighter. But I had fallen behind reading her posts, and I had no idea that she was nearing the end of her journey. But in fine Liz fashion, she decided to host her own 60th birthday party. And boy, what a party that was. And what a gift that party was to me, to have that weekend to spend together, to have time to tell her how much she meant to me. And to go through all of our photos and make her a memory blanket was such a blessing. So many photos, so many memories, so much joy. That blanket holds the story of a friendship that helped shape my life. I don't know how she had the strength to throw that party, and I really struggled to be there, but I am so glad she did. Liz was truly special. She gave her time and her heart to others, to her students' families, to her teaching colleagues, to her friends, to her family, and to me. How is Liz gone? It feels impossible that someone with such strength and generosity can just be gone. But Liz didn't leave quietly. She left on her own terms with remarkable courage. And I think she left knowing how profoundly loved she was. What gives me a little comfort is knowing the immense and lasting impact she had. Liz was a giver to her family, her students, her community, and her church. She opened hearts and minds, and she leaves us all a little better than when she found us. Liz, I love you like a sister. I am grateful for every adventure, every laugh, every hug. Thank you for the life you lived and the love you shared. I will carry your spirit with me always. Godspeed, Liz. Give Sophie a hug from me until we meet again. Thank you.
And Cynthia, where is Cynthia? There you are.
I think I'm just going to have to read this. Elizabeth and Dave and Bruce, Janice and Helen, my sisters, call our bonus cousin. We chose each other through my mother, Froni Ward, and our stepfather, Alan Morgan. Elizabeth, Dave, and Bruce came into our life when I was 12. I'm going to change a little bit because some of the stuff everybody has said, but someone mentioned a superpower. So Liz's superpower was connecting people. Janice and Helen and I went and stayed at Bruce and Dave's house a lot. We know what those rooms look like. We were there. We know what those bedrooms look like. And when he says it was rustic and quarters were tight, that's not an exaggeration. The first time I went and stayed, I slept on the floor of Elizabeth's room a lot, and which was literally just like right outside the door of Dave and Bruce's room too. I remember the poster on the door. Didn't exactly know why it was there. But someone mentioned Elizabeth's superpower, and that was writing letters and keeping people in touch. I couldn't find them because I have a disorganized shed, but Elizabeth and I wrote letters because we didn't, I mean, if you remember long distance phone calls, those weekends, no one got to call. It was expensive and no internet. So I have a lifetime of letters of writing back and forth between myself and Elizabeth about growing up and about our lives and about her brothers and about my sisters and our struggles growing up in the 80s and even afterwards. So I have a snapshot of Elizabeth's life from the time I was 12 until actually the day before she passed. She moved to Knoxville. We've just been in each other's lives and known each other forever. As everyone has mentioned, Elizabeth was a lifelong runner and triathlete. Movement was very much a part of who she was, not just physically, but the way she lived. She kept going. Elizabeth showed up. She pushed through hard things in determination and grace. She needed it without needing attention. When I was going through a hard time a couple of years ago, she was there, supportive, visiting, sending flowers to myself and Chris, and just being there for us. She was a dear friend, steady and kind, and losing her feels impossibly unfair. It just doesn't seem right. But I'm deeply grateful for the years we had, for the letters I still have, for the miles she ran and the friendship we shared. Her presence, her strength, and her heart will stay with me always. I speak for myself and my sisters and my family by saying we will miss her dearly.
Thank you all for sharing. Nobody needs to remind any of us that she was special, and we're all going to miss her a lot. But the world's better because she was here, and we all know that too. So I want to tell you just a little story, which is that when Elizabeth retired, which was a few months, about 8 months before she was diagnosed, she said, Carol, I just need to figure out who I am and what I want. And we started getting together every couple of weeks to walk, because I'm not no runner. I'm sorry, y'all. She was like, we'll walk. I was, thank you. So we walked, and we walked in the neighborhood here. And she talked about y'all all the time. We'd walk and she'd talk about what the grandkids were doing. She'd talk about her friends. She'd talk about who she was traveling with next. She'd talk about when she was going to be in Florida and who she and Dave were going to hang out with. She talked about her history at school. She talked about you all the time. So I want to read you part of the opening. Of this book. The book is called The Comfort of Crows, A Backyard Year. It's by Margaret Wrinkle, and it's about observing nature at work, about paying attention, and it's sort of it goes through the course of a year. It's about the passage of time by observing nature. And here's how it starts. Wherever you are, stop what you're doing. Stop and look at the tangled rootlets of the poison ivy vine climbing the locust tree. Notice the way they twist around each other like plates in a golden braid. Stop and listen to the ragged-edged beech leaves. Consider the deep hollows of the persimmon bark. Stop and peer at the hummingbird nest, smaller than your thumb, in the crook of the farthest reach of an oak branch. Stop and think for a time about kinship. Think for a long time about kinship. The world lies before you, a lavish garden. However hobbled by waste, however fouled by graft and tainted by deception, it will take your breath away if you let it. Seeing beauty amidst the ugliness, really paying attention, poetry and the willingness to show up. Those are things I learned about from Elizabeth. She saw the connections between things. She made the rest of us think about the connections between things, and she connected us so we could all work together to connect about connecting on things that were important, right? So I'm just going to remind you one more time about her foundation, which I think it's awesome that she used her initials to create the name of this. She did not skimp on details. She paid attention to details. It's managed by the East Tennessee Foundation, the Elizabeth Corbett Memorial Foundation, Enriqueciendo mi comunidad, enriching my community. The purpose is funding programs through the Lenore City Schools to support Spanish-speaking students and their families, so we can all continue to support that. We can spread the word about that. If you need information, just let me or anyone in the family know. So she asked one last thing. I was with her and Dave when we were getting ready to take her to the hospital, the last moments when she was in her house. And she was laying in the bed, and I had my hands on her, and she said, "Play Bob Marley." Like, what Bob Marley do you want? She was having a hard time. She was like, "You know the one I want." I was like, "Don't worry, be happy." She said, "That's the one." So I was holding my hands on her, and we were singing Bob Marley. And she said to me, "Carol, promise me that this song is the last thing that will happen in my memorial service." And I said, "I promise. This is what we will do last in your memorial service." So we are going to have the words, and you all are going to sing loud, especially on the chorus, right? We're all going to sing loud because she was determined. She liked to organize the details. She wanted us to remember this message. She wanted us to be lifted, and she wanted us to go out into the world and lift spirits. So I invite you to sing with us as we listen to her chosen song. she thought we could make things more right. She was convinced that we could make things more right. So we're going to have time to share more stories and food from Elizabeth's favorite caterer, who she chose, right? There are hot and cold drinks in the back of this room. There's food down the hallway on the left. There's more video that you can watch. In the midst of sadness, let us remember that message she wanted us to go away with. She specifically wanted us to go away with that message. Celebrate the joy of this life. Don't take anything for the gift of her presence for all of us. And let's commit to honoring her by carrying that legacy forward. I hope that the community she has created makes and ripples and ripples and ripples out, because that is what she was committed to in her life. So let's go out into the world to honor her by loving this world and loving it and loving every part of it and loving each other. May it be so. Go in peace, with peace in your hearts, knowing that the way she touched you, you have the courage and the possibility of touching others. May it be so.